institutions of the government tend to be so lenient and compliant. If you did nothing wrong and a police officer asked you, show me your ID, and you said, no, I legally don't have to show you my ID, and you were rude, does that justify putting you in handcuffs and taking you to jail?
Ruslan.
Don't let something like this divide us. This is something that should be as clear as day. Here's what legally transpired. And even if we may disagree on some of the particulars, we should be generally like, hey, this was bad. There was a pastor in Alabama who was in his mid-50s that was watering his neighbor's flowers. Another neighbor called the cops on him, and they came and arrested him.
He was watering the flowers because the people that lived there were out of town, and they actually asked him to take care of the plants while they were out of town.
I'm not hurling accusations against anyone or anything, but this is a wild story.
So the police arrive at the property, and then this is them approaching the pastor.
What you doing here, man? Are they saying that? Is that your vehicle? It's not?
It's the neighbor's vehicle.
The neighbors?
314, I'll be on 13.
Okay. You live here?
No, I don't live here.
Okay. They saying that this vehicle is not supposed to be here and you're not supposed to be
Who's
here?
saying it?
They called about it. I don't know who called.
I'm supposed to be here. I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
You're Pastor Jennings?
Yeah.
That's an important note.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? Did he even ask you who are you?
No.
He just said, I'm Pastor Jennings. I live across the street.
While they gone.
Okay.
While they fly.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Now, do you have like ID and all?
No, man. I'm not going to give you no ID.
Why not?
I ain't did nothing wrong.
Well, you look, listen, I'm not saying do nothing wrong. There's a suspicious person.
Look, I used to be a police officer.
So now it's escalating to give me your ID. And if you listen carefully to what he says is, I used to be a police officer. He's watering a neighbor's lawn, another neighbor, flowers, another neighbor calls the police, and they approach him, and he identifies himself, and then they ask him, can you show ID? And he says, no, I used to be a police officer. This is when he's getting agitated. Probably because he used to be a police officer. He knows his rights.
Yeah.
And you looked it up, and in the state of Alabama, what is the law?
When you are on private property and not suspected of any crime, you are not required to show ID if a police officer asks you to. On private property.
Legally speaking,
he's not.
He does not have to show ID.
And he's not suspected of a crime. They're just curious.
I'm always interested why folks who tend to be hyper suspicious of institutions of the government, of the central bank, of the FBI, of right?
Yeah.
Tend to be so lenient and compliant with police officers being able to pull up and just demand you show ID with no probable cause. Some of you guys are so riled up about every other institution. The CDC is lying to you. There's the central bank's lying to you, all these different things. But yet you demand someone who legally doesn't have to comply to comply. Why should he have to comply?
Yeah, and for me, I mess with the police. I like the idea. Even when I was younger, I wanted to be a police officer because I like the idea of whatever. But when you go down the logical rabbit hole of like, oh, if I don't trust government, the police are really just an extension of whatever current administration is happening. Mm-hmm. So when it's a Republican administration, you know, there's an extension of that. If it's a Democratic administration, they're an extension of that.
Yep.
But they're always an extension of the current government and the government in a whole. So if there ever was a scenario where the Constitution was being violated, let's say, especially for like more right-leaning folks, the Second Amendment, and they want to go grab your guns, Biden and Kamala Harris are not pulling up to your house grabbing your guns. It's the police. It's your local police.
The police.
So and they're like, everyone knows the term police state. So it's like, why are we so easy to be like supporting the police?
Just comply, bro.
Yeah, just comply, bro. Because there is a level of like, I understand that it's an individual person. They probably went in this to serve their community and all that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when they are overstepping their bounds, we shouldn't be encouraging people to comply with a police state, especially if you're someone that claims to lean more right.
Absolutely. And maybe he didn't have his ID on him.
Yeah.
What if he didn't have his ID on him? What if he was... Who walks around with their ID when they're going across the street to water flowers?
Yeah. And he's like in sweatpants. You know, he's in like day clothes.
Yeah. Let's play the rest.
Look, man, don't do this to me. There's a suspicious person in the yard, and if you're not one to identify yourself...
I don't have to identify myself. It's not a stop and identify state. That guy know me. He came to my store that got broke in. I live right over there across the street. Who calls y'all?
That's what we got to figure out. But first, He don't live here. I'm not saying nothing about.
You have no right to approach me if I ain't did nothing suspicious or nothing wrong. Told him I'm a pastor. I pastor until I don't need. You want to lock me up? Lock me up. Nobody wants to lock
And so pause it. So at this point, this is I know some of you guys don't like to understand the historical context. This is a black man in his 50s in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it Alabama that didn't legalize interracial marriage until 1999? Alabama did not legalize interracial marriage until the year 2000.
Wait, what?
My wife is black, fam.
I was born already, and I don't get anything in the history books except for 9/11.
So crazy. So yes, there's a cultural component to what's happening. Yes, there's context to what's happening. Yes, he's frustrated. Wouldn't you be frustrated? If you served as a police officer, you were a pastor, you were doing a good deed for your neighbor who was out of town by watering their flowers, and someone comes up to you and demands you to show ID, and you know you legally don't have to show ID.
And he's a police officer.
He was a police officer.
So he's like explaining.
I've already identified myself. I live over there.